We're gonna be talking about the... We'll be talking about the... Do you think that's funny, butthead? Do you find it amusing that we'll be talking about the... Yes, we're also gonna be talking about... And we will definitely be spending a lot of time talking about...
Robot Wars Series 2 was looking like a massive success for the BBC. By the time of Heat F's airing in December 1998, every episode had a minimum rating of 5 million viewers, with each episode so far finishing in the top 3 of the BARB rankings for BBC Two, all finishing third under either The Simpsons or Have I Got News For You. The Robot Wars Club, which had been made the year prior before the airing of Series 1, had become the hub for not only fans of the show, but those wishing to compete in Robot Wars. And by December 1998, the member count had reached well into 4 figures. With the success of Robot Wars being more and more apparent as the second series had rolled along, the second half of that series had a lot to live up for in terms of viewership. Who would join the likes of Napalm, Mace, Mortis, Behemoth, Killatron and Panic Attack as the next 6 to book their place in the series semi-finals? If only such a question could be answered in a conveniently made YouTube video. The 7th heat of the series saw the return of the reigning champions of the first series, the Bodmin Community College's Roadblock, who's gone virtually unchanged apart from probably its scariest add-on, a police siren. And also, there's the return of Ireland's finest, Nemesis. Other bots that I would like to give mention to, mainly because I like them, are Rox, which is just neat, Limpet, the first machine built by John Denny, who would build another robot that I have absolutely no concept of because this is 1998 and this is Series 2 of Robot Wars, and Kilohertz, John Reed's first foray into robot combat. Fun fact, John Reed had made a CAD concept robot as early as 1996 called Razorback, which, when you see it, makes it quite obvious where the inspiration for Kilohertz would come from. This heat would also introduce a one-off member of the house robots, the Sentinel, a giant, overarching arm that, in theory, would push and bully robots, or throw them into the pit. The Sentinel was a repurposed mini excavator that was controlled by a crew member that was conveniently hidden inside, which meant that there was a person inside the arena, while gauntlet runs were happening.
Every detail of the set has been meticulously planned and modelled, and even up to the last minute there are still little touches to be added to the Sentinel to create the finish required.
Yeah, we got the brief on Wednesday. It's now Saturday, and we've converted it from this digger into this digger.
For a bit of context for anyone not too privy to modern robot combat, arenas are usually built with a really strong material called Lexan surrounding the entire outside of the arena so that shrapnel doesn't get thrown out and hit someone. It doesn't always work, but that's often due to incompetence rather than the Lexan itself, but we won't get too much into that. If someone was inside a heavyweight arena while a fight was happening nowadays, there'd no doubt be a wrongful death lawsuit being thrown around to someone. Now, I will say that this is Series 2 of Robot Wars we're talking about, not Manta vs Riptide and BattleBots World Championship 8. If it happens. But regardless, it's pretty damn unsafe to have a person inside the arena while bots are moving, even if it is limpid. With that, Roadblock got through the gauntlet fine, only being slightly inconvened by the Sentinel. Nemesis got through, but not before given another arson-related injury in the process. Onslaught fucked up. Rox couldn't
work no forklift
very well. Limpet was limping with a broken track thanks to Sir Killalot, and Kilohertz performed a Brexit tackle on Dead Metal. But forgetting that Dead Metal is the robotic equivalent of Gennaro Gattuso, Brexit tackled Kilohertz back and chucked it into the pit. But they got through. You know who didn't? Rox, another child completely devastated by the cruel hand of Mentorn. The Trials was another round of Skittles, and, honestly, the only things worth noting about it was Kilohertz twatting into the barrels at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and Nemesis being set on fire again. But Roadblock were last in that trial, and were looking to be on their way out. Until Limpet came along, that is. Limpet were the next to go out, and John Denny's beautiful mullet along with it. The arena round saw Roadblock against Kilohertz, and in true Kilohertz fashion, they go full send into Roadblock, break down immediately, and are pushed into the PPZ to be food for the house robots. Fantastic. We love John Reed. Second arena round was a nippy, underrated Onslaught versus the Shithouse King's Nemesis. Nemesis would spend a lot of time just walking in circles, and Onslaught would spend an equal amount of time running around like a Jack Russell who's just been told they're going on a walk. Nemesis broke down shortly after. Onslaught realised that and pushed them into the pit, leaving them and Roadblock to fight for a place in the series semi-finals. Roadblock won, by the way. In fact, Onslaught didn't even move. Sadly, a dud of a heat. Next heat would include possibly the most well-loved robot of the entire series. No, it's not the reigning champions Roadblock. It's Rex Garrett's second foray into pneumatic flippers. The godfather of Brit flippers, Cassius. The builder and operator of Brum had come back and with a point to prove. Well, you'd think that anyway. Rex was here to have fun like last year. And have fun he would. Their gauntlet trial was a piece of cake, immediately nutmegging the Sentinel and performing an actually successful Brexit tackle on Dead Metal to make it to the end zone. The only other thing of note in this gauntlet was a robot called Groundhog, accidentally making Sir Killalot fall over onto its face. Hopefully the builders, some kids called Graham Bone and Alex Mordew, whoever they are, can make something a bit better for next year. Meanwhile, Rex was still having fun, barely knowing how to play football in robotic form and somehow still getting through to the next round. In the arena, Cassius fought a giant Megan Mog cosplay on wheels known as the Wizard, but it only gave them maybe 20 seconds of its time because Rex wasn't worried about whatever their opponent was. They just wanted to attack the house robots. They wanted to stick it to the man. And in their final against Loco, who lasted probably a whole 30 seconds before being rolled over by what was 1/4 of a flip, that's exactly what he did.
A little pirouette of delight. Oh, magnificent! And he's flipped Matilda. It's the second time he's done it. He's the star of the show. Look at that.
And now you understand why everybody loves old Rex. He understood that making and building things should be fun. He had a deep understanding of what made good television, probably from his time being on TV in the 80s, and used it to his full advantage with Cassius. So this leaves 4 heats to go, and the next one had more vitally important characters to the Robot Wars cinematic universe. One Simon Harrison and his 4-wheeled silver box King Buxton, and one Mike Franklin with his tracked machine RoboDoc, which on first glance doesn't have anything to do with doctors, or on second glance, or third.
How long did King Buxton take to make initially? Like, what was, like, the whole designing and building? How long did that take?
Drums. Let me think. I can't remember quite honestly. I think by the time they'd shown Series 1, it was quite a short countdown to Series 2.
Yeah.
You know, because they filmed it and edited it, and they'd already decided they're making a Series 2 pretty quick because I think by the third show they had quite good figures, and I think it was probably the third show I actually spoke to Mentor, because Grant said you've got to speak to them. So I phoned them up and reluctantly said, "Can I come in do this?" They said, "Yeah." So we got going, but it was really like a scrap heap sort of thing. I think we bought a remote control for £69 and Acoms or something. But everything else just did with junk from my garage and dump stuff, and like we never really saw how it was going to be, but we knew what we wanted to. Well, I knew what I wanted to make, and I was modified. There's another guy, Steve, who drove the first King Buxton version, and he was already a sort of Group A sort of racing driver, you know, like tin top touring cars, and so he had an idea about speed, and I had an idea about power. And so we got going on that, and I suppose we got going around Steve's garage. Must have done it in 7 months, I guess.
That's not bad.
Less than that. It must be less than that. 6 months. I think we had about 6 months. By the time it filmed, it was 7 months.
We also have All Talk, Rottweiler, Prometheus, and Cruella, which I no doubt would not be able to tell which is which if you asked me to name them after watching this heat. Actually, that's a bit unfair for All Talk. The other 3, though, definitely. Buxton's gauntlet heat started out quite underwhelmingly, but a short burst forward gave them pretty decent distance. RoboDoc would have a marginally better run, but not before Matilda setting Killalot on fire in the process. Wedge number 1 had a lackluster run, as does dog-themed. I don't know if I can call this a wedge, actually. It's like 15 feet raised from the ground. And wedge number 2, which did enter Series 1, but I doubt anyone would have noticed, as Killalot mounted it for much longer than was even necessary. Alltalk, however, had a much better run, sealing their place in the trials. Cruella was out, and nothing of value was lost. The trial for this heat was Joust, which is sumo but with extra steps. What you'll notice very quickly is how Matilda will take pretty much every opportunity to shoot sparks out of her eyes during the series. This is more apparent during this heat in particular. After Rottweiler's dismal trial run, which I will be nice about because this time it's being driven by a fetus, means that somehow Prometheus is through to the arena round. Also, I'm a complete hypocrite because I was taking the piss out of some Yorkshire 5-year-old earlier. The first semi-final was one to note because it would be the start of one of the longest rivalries in Robot Wars history. The Franklins versus the Harrisons. Or, well, one Franklin versus one Harrison.
2, 1, activate!
King Buxton is the quicker, lighter, and smaller robot, as you can see by a long chalk. Those titanium spikes look dangerous. This is good mobility, this is good style, this is good control, and it's pushed Robodoc into the PPZ, the perimeter patrol zone, and dead metals, pincers, and the circular saw. Avoiding each other. Oh my goodness me! Robodoc nearly went into the pit of oblivion, and Matilda's going to push him back there. Time is running out. Robodoc heaves back at Matilda. Again, he's turned up onto its head. Over the flaming pit. Charcoal Robodoc.
Finally, a decent fight, but a judge's decision gives the fight to King Buxton. Water enthusiasts, rise up. We don't need to mention the other fight. Alltalk won the easiest pushing match of all time. In fact, the fight was so boring that the editor added in B-roll of the King Buxton team instead of the Alltalk team. And after a surprisingly quick defeat from Alltalk, King Buxton is the next machine to make the series semi-finals. With heats J and L seeing the success of GBH and their overly excitable team members, and Hardvark, which is something I guess, but at least they also have excitable team members, is Heat K. Yes, I'm doing them out of order. No, I'm not giving GBH or Hardvark 20 minutes of my emotional labour. Mainly because I want to use this time to focus on these guys. The Pride of Hampshire, the Plunderbird Boys. What I like about the Plunderbird Boys, and Plunderbird 2 in particular, is that they are basically the Ringo Starr of Robot Wars, in that they basically sleepwalk through their entire heat, trundling around the gauntlet at a snail's pace before driving into the pit, beating both Dead Metal and Sergeant Bash in the trial round, fending off completely fabricated allegations of being chickens, did barely enough to win a judge's decision against Enzyme, a machine built by 3 fetuses, and nudging Roger Plants to mule the Rally Arena enough to bag them a place in the series semi-finals, all while having their own theme song. Absolute shithousery in Robot Wars form, and we love them for it. So that leaves only the series semi-finals left. We've been summarising these heats way longer than I care to admit, so let's blast through this part and get to the grand final as quickly as we can. Because I'm tired. I've endured more Series 2 than anyone ever deserves to endure. The first series semi-final consists of the first 6 heat winners from 150 billion weeks ago. Napalm, Behemoth, Mortis, Mace, Killatron, and Panic Attack. The gauntlet in this round is tougher, with the Sentinel now being able to rotate an entire 360 degrees, which will be of note later. 2 pits instead of 1, making every UK combat robot fan salivate, and a giant ball. A giant ball, yeah. Napalm, some fucking how, got through the gauntlet with near no challenge from the house robots, which canonically makes Claire Greenaway the greatest driver in Robot Wars history. Behemoth and a baby-faced Anthony Pritchard struggled a bit more, but still had a decent run at 7.5 meters. Mortis's run was quite entertaining, stunt-manning it into the gauntlet wall, being righted by Shunt and Matilda, and then reversing into the end zone to bag their place in the next round. Mace tried to go towards the Sentinel, pissed themselves, went to the seesaw instead, and then got pitted by Shunt, who also pushed the seesaw back as well for good measure. Slight knobhead behaviour there from Shunt, I'm not gonna lie. Killatron had a better run as Shunt's hold the seesaw strategy was starting to become old tech, leaving the pink, orange, porridge, oink robot to slide into the end zone, which leaves only Panic Attack. Surely they could do better than Mace, right?
Who goes out though? Can they creep forward a couple more centimetres? Just a couple more centimetres! There they go! Have they done enough? It's going to be very, very tight! Very tight!
Come off the platform!
Okay, round stopped, and now we have an equal weight. You think he's got far enough?
Never mind.
You're not filling up there, are you, Shannon?
No, don't do things like that.
Interestingly enough, you've travelled exactly the same distance as Mace.
It is exactly the same measurement.
So you and Mace are going to have to run the gauntlet again?
We're going to have to run again.
No, not again.
And so, history. The first and last gauntlet race in Robot Wars. 6.9 meters between the both of them. I am better than that. I will not acknowledge the potential comedic material that can come from such a specific measurement. After a coin flip, Mace would be racing on the left lane, which means they have to take on the Sentinel, which, might I add, has 360 degrees of rotation, whereas Panic Attack would be racing on the right lane, meaning that they must take on the Seesaw and Shunt's shithouse tactics. So who will be victorious in the first and last race-off in Robot Wars?
History is made on Robot Wars, the first ever race-off, and immediately Panic Attack makes further progress. You see, that choice of lane's decisive. Panic Attack gets a flick of the scorching flame from Sergeant Bash, and Mace is coming back ever so slowly. Mace now pushed away by the Sentinel, teetering, tottering, and gone! And Panic Attack is through.
Mace is out, and Panic Attack scrapes through with the skin of their teeth, leaving 5 left to take on the first instance of a new trial, and one that will be a staple in future series. Pinball. The objective? Score as many points as possible by doing the most stuff. You'll understand it as you go along, trust me. Panic Attack, last to go in the gauntlet, first to go in the trials, gets a decent 320 points. Napalm, and the best driver in the history of Robot Wars, gets stuck on the Seesaw, leaving them prone to the most OP house robot to ever exist, picking them up and placing them onto the flame pit, leaving them only with 65 points. A crap but still better than Napalm run from Behemoth leaves them safe with 95 points. Mortis, after having their first pinball run be null and void after a track had broken on their robot, got to try the pinball run again, leaving them with 100 points. And Kilotron's underwhelming pinball run was somehow good enough for second place, leaving Dartford Girls Grammar School's Napalm the next to fall. The arena round saw Behemoth go against Kilotron, and Panic Attack faced a seemingly indomitable Mortis. Panic Attack and Mortis would have a great back and forth with each other before a sudden assist from Matilda lifted Mortis into the air, leaving them unable to do anything, as Panic Attack immediately shoved them into the pit without a moment's notice. And Kilotron would win its fight against Behemoth with ease after a brilliant pickaxe shot on the dome piece, leaving them prone to be slowly pulled up and over for a knockout. Which means our first 2 grand finalists are Kilotron and Panic Attack. The second semi-final had reigning champion Roadblock, former grand finalist Rex Garrett and his new robot Cassius, the H2O Monarch known as King Buxton, GBH, Plunderbird 2, and Hardvark. Roadblock's gauntlet run was pretty rubbish actually at 5.4 meters, and Cassius's run was somehow worse at 5.15 meters. King Buxton fared much better getting to the end zone, but I imagine it was somewhat helped by the fact that Shunt fell into the pit. I also forgot to mention that Kilolot fell into the pit in the previous episode too, which is not a good batting average for the house robots. GBH managed to pick up a single brick and immediately drove into the pit, and still did better than Roadblock and Cassius. I don't know why I expect anything from this series anymore. Plunderbird 2's shithousery had run out of shithouse juice, as the bot only managed a measly 0.9 meters, showing that you could do the bare minimum and still make it through the gauntlet if your robot is named Roadblock or Cassius. And lastly, Hardvark, which despite my bitter contempt for the machine, the team seemed like really nice people, so I'll give them that at least. Their run was dog shit though, but not as dog shit as Plunderbird 2's, meaning that Hampshire's finest are going home. And there's nothing scarier than going home to Hampshire. Roadblock fared much better than it did in the gauntlet, constantly honking its siren, with the added bonus of Matilda falling into the pit, making the third house robot pitting in 2 episodes. Even Kilolot's attack was barely a problem, as they would immediately rack up more points upon landing on their feet. 355 to be exact. Better than anyone in the first semi-final. Next up, Cassius, and what seemed to be a fast start were immediately met with the wrath of Sir Kilolot, who would pick them up in the air with absolutely no issues whatsoever. But, as a certain Donnie Jones once said, some things just don't need commentary.
Goes beyond the ramp, turns up, brilliant! Superb gymnastics from Cassius!
What we just witnessed was the first ever intentional self-write in the history of UK Robot Wars. 2 years after Biohazard succeeded in self-writing in Robot Wars 1996, Rex Garrod, a special effects expert from the small town of Mickfield, took the art of self-writing to the British Isles and coined the phrase self-writing mechanism.
That was one of the most spectacular bits of robots here had ever seen on Robot Wars. What was that about?
A self-writing mechanism.
A self-writing mechanism. It was like a double somersault in the air.
Yeah, well, that's just one of its tricks.
And he mentioned it so casually too, he even laughed about it. In fairness to all the competitors in this semi-final, all of them managed to score 100 points comfortably, but it was GBH that would be the next to fall, leaving the arena round left to determine the next two grand finalists. The first arena fight was Cassius against Hardvark, and keeping on its almost mercurial run of flamboyant form, Cassius spent no time landing an actually decent flip on an opponent, sending Hardvark on their side before flipping them again, and then flipping them a third time. But a broken chain on Cassius meant they seemed to be in trouble for a brief period, but then Zakillalot blanked out and went after Hardvark instead. After Hardvark was left to die on the flame pit, Cassius was the clear winner, but not before taking an actually decent flip on Zakillalot, keeping within his bit of going after the house robots. It's actually crazy how good Cassius was, even with all the goofing off Rex Garrod was doing in the series. And the last fight before the grand final, King Buxton against the champions Roadblock. And despite a great effort from King Buxton, the batteries would give out, leaving Roadblock to actually, for once, use their circular saw. And so, we finally have our 4 grand finalists. Roadblock by the Bodmin Community College, Cassius by Rex Garrod, Panic Attack by Kim Davies, and Kilotron by Richard Broad. After 12 heats, 2 semi-finals, at least 6 mental breakdowns, 9 crying fits, and at least 15 instances of uncontrollable diarrhea, it has all come down to this. Our first grand final eliminator was probably the battle that was most looked forward to, the reigning champions versus the madman only known to us mortals as Rex. Roadblock versus Cassius.
Plenty of respect between the two teams, apprehension in particular on the faces of the Roadblock team. But there's early aggression from Roadblock trying to get in underneath Cassius, and despite what they were saying, you sense they're trying to flip Cassius, who rides Roadblock. Now Cassius is away. Has an opportunity. Cassius, ooh, just avoiding. Killalot, and Killalot's flipped it. Are we going to see it? Are we going to see it? Yes! We have seen it. They love the bunny hop. Let's see it again. Hey! Wonderful stuff. And again, super stuff with that ram. That self-righting ram. Brilliant. Oh, look at this. Top of your picture. Robot meanwhile is running for the PPZ. It's in trouble. And in comes Cassius. Will he use the ram in the attack? Yes! Robot is flipped on its side. Shunt in there. Dead metal too. Time is ticking down though. Cassius comes in for one more shove to get it away from Dead Metal. Almost getting into trouble too from Killalot. But surely Cassius and Rex Garrod have done enough here.
Cassius bags its place in the grand final, doing yet another self-right after looking to be on the back foot, coming back from a mistake from Roadblock and being in the best possible position to win the whole thing. And looking stylish while doing so. So it leaves only Panic Attack and Kilotron to fight the kings of robotic aura.
England against Wales, and of course the beasts from Armageddon awaiting the PPZ. Panic Attack immediately on the attack, and I think that's caused problems to Kilotron immediately. Well, I was wondering about its durability under pressure, and I don't think Kilotron can move here. There's something wrong. There's something badly wrong. Oh, and look at that! Scratching and scraping and tearing, and Panic Attack goes forward and wants to have a little piece of the house robots. Panic Attack looking to use those electrically operated lifting spikes, and Kilotron's in all sorts of trouble here, and on its way out surely into the flames. So underrated, and it wants to push Bash into the pit, goes in itself, but I think they've done enough.
Panic Attack, the victors. A fine performance from the Welsh team, disposing of Kilotron with ease and leaving Sergeant Bash in the pit in the process. 4 house robot pittings in 3 episodes, guys. Absolutely poor form from the top dogs. After a quite underwhelming 3rd place playoff leaving Roadblock to claim bronze medal, there's only one fight left. The culmination of nearly 4 months of weekly robot fighting. The king of the flippers, Rex, Garrett and Cassius versus the pride of Cymru, Kim Davies and Panic Attack. Who will come out as the victors?
Activate. Almost silence in the arena. It is so tense. Cassius immediately on the attack with Rex Garrett, an inspiration to all young engineers everywhere. And underneath Panic Attack, with that front blade, Panic Attack raising money for charity. Really couldn't have two more pleasant finalists, but now, go on, kill each other. Cassius, oh hey! A flyover from Panic Attack. Panic Attack turns, get up to 9 miles an hour. Cassius 25 miles an hour. The more powerful of the two, but Panic Attack underrated. Look at that! Oh, what an upset! Panic Attack the winners! That is a huge upset!
In an upset of gargantuan proportions, the underdogs, Panic Attack, who entered the series of Robot Wars raising money for charity, stood on top and became the champions of the second series of Robot Wars. But how? It didn't seem right that a robot that was as good as Cassius were to be defeated so clinically. Naturally, long after the airing of the episode, rumours ended up circulating about whether or not Rex had thrown the fight for the sake of entertainment. While we sadly are not able to get confirmation from the man himself, we can get confirmation from the next best source, the winner of Robot Wars Series 2 himself.
So there's these rumors flying around that like Rex threw the fight, and I don't agree with that personally.
No, Rex didn't throw the fight. Rex wanted to win. He would.
Yeah.
All he wanted to do was not win it in the first couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Which, when we went over the top, I don't know whether his reactions were slow, or whether he was expecting it, or whether he thought, "Oh, we'll get him next time."
Yeah.
But who knows?
It worked out. Yeah, it worked out in one way or another.
Unfortunately, you can't ask Rex now, but
yeah.
Oh well.
Well, it's a good thing that's cleared out, because I would have hated the idea that he'd thrown the fight, because that would have thank goodness. Thank fuck for that.
And so, after a much longer, much more successful series of Robot Wars, Panic Attack were the undisputed winners, capping off a fantastic run of form for the Welsh team. The grand final of Robot Wars Series 2 had a TV rating of 6.94 million viewers, ranking it first of all BBC Two programmes for the first week of March 1999. If the success of the first series and its average viewership of 4 million was big, the average viewership of its second series, with over double the episode count, was a monumental 5.84 million. A grudge match episode featuring, but not limited to, a fight between Mortis and Napalm over the latter's trial defeat, Nemesis and a sacrificial machine built like a smash mashed potato robot going after Sergeant Bash, and Cassius driving to the pit and attempting to climb out with Mortis stuck on top of it, aired the week after the grand final to a viewership of 5.17 million, and ranking second in that week's BBC Two Barb rankings. To the fan of modern robot combat, where the robots are so dangerous and so technologically advanced that even if you're running a 150-gram spinner, you have to test it in a box or risk hurting yourself badly, Series 2 is a very hard watch. And it doesn't surprise me that people find it difficult to understand why Robot Wars was so popular at such a primitive point in time. My first point would be the fact that a lot of builders' first impressions of the show were, I could build something better than that. I hear it constantly from former builders and teams whenever they're asked about what got them to enter. It got so many people to question the quality of the robots and try it for themselves, only for them to, most of the time, end up going no further than the machines they ridiculed. And another point, made by Andy from Team Maneuver Robotics, who runs the featherweight robot Red Dead Redemption, summarizes perfectly the classic appeal of Robot Wars. The charm of Series 2 isn't the fights, it's the vibe, the jank, the delusion of people not knowing what they're doing. It's shit, but it's good shit. Also, I quite like the gauntlet. Series 2 is the king of the vibe. So much care was put into the aesthetic of the show. The mechanical scrapyard set made for a really evocative industrial feel that, even despite their budget, is done so well and done with so much attention to detail that you can't help but love it. Craig Charles's dry but enthusiastic style of humour, coupled with the actual excitement he gets when a team succeeds, especially if it's a team that doubts themselves as much as Panic Attack did. Philippa Forrester being in the centre of all the drama and suspense of teams not knowing whether they're going through to the next round, There's so much to love about this series. It is fantastic television, and our opinion of it has only changed because of the fact that robot combat has evolved to such a different beast. Which is a good thing, I might add. If we were still talking about how good the fights were in Series 2 25 years later, that would be a bit of a problem. But the fact that we aren't, and most of us agree that the fights are mostly rubbish, means that the sport has evolved past the point of judging a series by its fight. What Series 2 and most early series of Robot Wars don't have in fight, it no doubt makes up for in its presentation. And that's what I think we should be judging early series of televised robot combat on. This doesn't mean we can't acknowledge or make fun of how bad the fights are in early series, but we lose all of the context of the rest of the show if we focus so linearly on that aspect. Which is why, and I say this with genuine sincerity, Robot Wars Series 2 is good. Not all of it, and especially if you're not a hardcore robot combat fan, but it's fun, entertaining, and very, very important to the overarching story of the history of robot combat as a sport. The end of Series 2 would mark the end of their filming tenure at London's Docklands, opting to move to Elstree Studios in Hertfordshire to film a third series of Robot Wars. Hot on the coattails of their success, can they keep it up in the face of a complete aesthetic and competitive makeover? We sail from Series 2's dock shores. What treasures await us next for Robot Wars? See you next time.
Jesus Christ, it's finally over. Series 2 is finally over. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe. If you didn't enjoy the video, make sure you like and subscribe. What a journey. You know what's so funny? At the start of the first part of the second series video, I said it's not gonna take nearly as long for the second part. Guess what? It did. So many editing issues. Vegas literally had some sort of fucking integer overflow at some point. I know it probably wasn't that, but it literally started to die. I had to re-render the video, put it in another thing, and then start all over. But we got there in the end. And now next up is my favorite series, Series 3. So yeah, look out for that. I'm sorry it took so long. More bot showcases coming up, and yeah, love you. Bye bye.